you're ready.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will call this meeting to order at 10 o'clock, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Yes, I said September. It's already September. Wow. Final budget review with the clerk, and I've asked the clerk, we were just discussing if she could kind of, since this is not the process that we had last year, if you could kind of explain the process.
Well, the way that we done it prior, years ago, is we had our public hearing upstairs. We have sign-in sheets, and then we also had our what we publicized in the paper to hand out at the time of public hearing. Now, given the fact that you guys have not made the decision regarding your levy rates, this way you take in your public comments and you take everything in whatever, and think about it prior to setting the budgets. You don't set the levy rates up there in the public hearing at that time. We never have prior. That way you guys can take in your comments from the public, and then if you want to go over some of the figures to reduce, or at that point from what, of course, we have reduced from what has been in the paper. But if you want to reduce more, then you guys, the four of us, would get together again one more time, and then you would make your decisions. I go out and change my figures. You come downstairs, and then you set your levy rates at that point. But it's never the same day that the public hearing is. It never has been, put it that way. You have, statutory.
Except last year, I think.
Statutory, you have, and I think it's 2 days after, which was always on a Thursday, and that's when they normally did it, was on the Thursday. So
that's why we have the meeting set for tomorrow at 11:30, is to discuss if we want to make any changes after the hearing.
after the public hearing, yes. So,
And then at 12 o'clock, I'm just stating this for the public and for
Okay.
the staff and the other elected. Okay, so did everybody understand? Was that as clear as mud? Okay. So today we'll have a hearing, but tomorrow at 11 we will discuss if there's any final changes, or 11:30, and then at 12 we would adopt a budget.
right.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a change for those of us who
Okay.
just,
And you can, as long as we're within the statutory, you can change it the way you want, but that's the way we always did it, so that the commissioners had that time to think things through from the public comments.
I would agree.
That's something that they always did. Prior, always had that time to think through what the public comments made to the board.
okay.
So this, what you gave us today, reflects all of the changes we have discussed in the workshops to this
Yes.
point.
To this point,
Okay.
yes.
And have the other elected seen this as far as the changes to their?
No, I know they will go out, usually after the public hearing, the day of. I usually I will be doing this to them, sending their information after I meet with you guys for the review. Does that make sense? You guys are having to review what we did.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure
Yes,
in
they
my
will get
mind
the-
that anything we agreed with them, we were changing.
Yes,
And I know their eyes would be better than mine for catching
okay.
their own department.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But, we basically did the Justice Department last week in their changes. That was the very last one that we had done. And what it raised up to, we had that 141,000, but by the time we knocked off the jailer and what was it? The leases, and then we added the 260,000. So that's basically where we went with the Justice Department. I did lower your 5% down, lowered the delinquency down to the 5%, but there's always a but. You really have to watch your cash, because if the delinquency comes in at 10, that means that cash is not going to be there for justice. So you're going to have to be watching that real closely, because we went ahead and did the 5%, but you just don't know what with delinquent taxes, if they're going to come in or if they're not going to come in.
And it's usually at 10.
We've always based it at 10% because it varied within so much. But the 10% basically would be cash anyway, you know. But that way, if it comes in, let's say at 5%, it'd increase their cash, basically. It doesn't take away anything from that department. Or the following year, that 10% would come in as income, hopefully, for the 3 years.
And I think it would help in this meeting, since we have several other elected and department heads here, if you have questions, just wave.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
If we were gonna be good with using, funds from, grants and raising taxes, was there a need to lower that if it's gonna put us in a predicament with our cash?
She's asking
What?
about the 5%
That
delinquency.
5%, if we were concerned with that, with our cash, lowering that to the 5%, since we're already using at least our grant money and we were raising taxes, was it worth lowering that to 5% if that's gonna put us in a predicament at the end of next year?
It really had no meaning, Katie, because no matter what, the cash is coming to your justice fund. But your leases and your grants are already have taken it out of the fund. So I guess I'm not understanding quite your question.
But if the taxes come in delinquent at 10% next year,
Mhm.
wouldn't that put us at a deficit?
Yes.
So wouldn't it,
Then you're so close, you have no carryover, you're almost in a minus position again. That's how close you are with the cash.
If you typically put it at 10%, and that's like the just in case scenario, what does it typically come in at? What's the average tax?
It's come in the last I went from 5 to 4, 9, 6. I gave it probably to the last one.
so it's kind of dollar for it. So this is 23, 22, 21, 29.
So it varies.
I would honestly prefer that we leave it at 10%. Just because of that.
What would that do if we left it at 10%?
Well, it's gonna knock her budget down to, it could be in the hole. That's why I did it.
Okay, understood.
Can we put it to a percentage like between that then, to like a 7% if it's not gonna put us in the hole?
Cash wise is still, that's why I brought it down to 5.
And that's kind of what Matt's requested. He was, when he was in here, he didn't understand why she had it at 10 and why, because it was down. He was worried about that, worried about this.
Right,
So she stuck it down to 5.
I had thought with the taxes and us paying the stuff off with the leases and bringing in the, 260, I thought.
It's 260,
But
but you're still that close in the hole.
okay.
We would have pumped into you guys 1,144,061, 2024, 2025 into the justice fund.
How much?
1,144,061. That's the 662 basically. That was public defense. The 222,000 increase of the levy and 260,000 of the grant. So that's what we're pumping into justice fund, cash wise.
Okay. Couple of things I just want to verify that have gotten mixed up in my head as we've gone through this. We're still leaving Viva at 750, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we haven't made any changes in
Nope.
the Viva. We're not funding, you talked about, and we've discussed that there was some money in here for not pay increases, but step and grade for
This side over here.
for the folks that haven't had one in the last couple, 3
That's
years.
correct.
What kind of an increase is that
That was 148,000, but there was.
for the individual though? What would that equate to?
Well, it depends on where they were in their step and grade. That's kind of,
Right,
So it
yeah,
would only
that's-
help the people that are,
that we're down below other people on the step and grade if everybody were to be put back into that.
But
that one system.
majority of
Not
it was
everybody, but-
funded with the admin cost. Majority of it was funded with the admin cost.
and we aren't giving any increases to any elected officials in pay, right?
I did put it in, but it's not set in stone.
For who?
This elected officials over here, but Ben's office, because Ben's office already had received it. The elected officials have not had anything in 3 years on this side.
So which elected officials would that affect? The assessor?
Assessor, clerk, treasurer, you guys, coroner. That coroner is in real sad shape.
Yeah,
I
he's
don't-
been skipped
Yeah, I
several years previous to.
Well,
I
he,
just missed that we were increasing those.
well, Cleveland said the 148, that's included all of it.
And that's where I missed it.
Okay,
I missed it. I thought we were talking about the employees. I didn't know we were raising elected officials, which I understand the reasoning, but how do you guys feel about that?
I would rather, not take an increase for commissioner.
I wouldn't.
And then, I would agree that the other elected officials like, Jerry, and, you know, since they haven't received any in 3.5 years, I wouldn't,
Yes, we did in 22. Was it 22?
We got a
21.
21.
21. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, be 3
The
years.
the coroner's the one that's really behind.
Mhm. And you see that throughout the state of Idaho. That's been coming across. by
So
the coroners.
assessor, clerk, treasurer, coroner, but why not the prosecutor?
Because he had
they
one
got
last year.
one last year and this year, right?
Well,
Okay, so I don't see raising the commissioners,
That's right, so,
right? You all right with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we're okay to
yeah.
not
That's right.
not raise them.
Telling Peggy that, yeah, yep.
okay,
How much raised? I feel lost now because I did not realize we were raising elected officials' pay. How much of an increase did we give?
I think it was 3%.
3%?
And I didn't raise taxes. Like I said, it was funded pretty much by all the administrative costs.
How do the other commissioners feel about increases for the other elected? Is that all right with you? I may be the only one that didn't realize it. I didn't know we were increasing everybody's pay.
I mean, we were doing step and grade or helping.
Step.
Yeah, I guess I thought it was the employees as well, but not the elected officials.
So but not, if I'm understood, so not everybody on this side. I understand the idea that Public Works and the Sheriff's Office have had some increases and we haven't had them over here. But the increase that we're doing over here would not affect every employee. It would only affect the ones who are on the right place in their step and grade.
I think so. That's how, yeah.
Yet this amount for the elected would be a guaranteed 3% increase. Yeah, that's,
Yeah. It's, kind of went over that, but.
I'm sorry,
Oh, that's fine.
I don't know how I missed it.
Well, I think because we went into that second grade and the whole 148, that's what it's would cost the county. The thing is, the reason why my opinion, and it's my opinion, you've got some of these elected officials that have not been increased. You've got people retiring, and there were times we went without 9 years without a raise. So that was why I kept playing with the figures and saying, well, I can pay for it this way, pay for it this way. So that's the reason why I stuck it in there. And they are getting to a point that they would need to increase for their retirement as well. But I know we went for 9 years without raises, the elected officials. There was that time. And we're so far behind a lot of the other counties, the sister counties.
Yeah. But would the pay study the
It's getting
elected as
close.
well? Would it cover them too?
I believe so. I'll call Brenda today, but she's getting close to wrapping it up too. So
Well, we can always throw their increases into county reserve, and then if that comes to pass, then we move it out.
That's, yeah. I think you're worried about the,
Do we have any way of knowing that the tax increase that we have okay to fund the sheriff's office, what the impact of that would be on the average homeowner? Do we have any way of guessing that?
3 cents
3 cents?
so far.
Okay,
The
that's-
amount that we've increased the sheriff's would affect
so basically we're not raising taxes.
3 cents from the previous year.
3 cents.
That's with
okay,
everything in there.
So we're not raising taxes on, and
You're at 3 cents. You're raising 3 cents. Basically from the previous, your L2s times 1,000, and that's where I get the figure from. That's how you figure this out. So take,
I went to Alan Dornfest training, but I'll
yeah.
admit.
See, on it is, until you start working with this. This is where you're at the end of the levy rate here. And last year's, right here. This is last year's. See your levy rates? That's where you were last year, this is where you are this year.
Okay.
But we gotta remember, you had all your new construction rolls and that type of stuff, but that's where you're at.
Okay, so we're funding this budget without a tax increase really, other than 3 cents.
for 100,000.
3 cents per
Per
100,000.
thousand.
Per thousand.
Oh. So that. Okay. Thank you for helping me understand that. Do we have questions from elected officials about their updated budgets?
Got a couple, Mr. Chair. My first point of inquiry really focuses on inquisition into whether or not the staff that's located within the prosecuting attorney's office, office manager, legal assistants, office staff, when we look at the potential for pay increases staff within other departments, identifying what determination was used to separate out that staff and determine that they were not deserving of a similar raise to other departments. So that would be my first question.
Excuse me, Dan, you misinterpreted that.
Okay.
It's the public official was not getting it. Your staff's in the step and
Okay.
grade. So
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah.
So that, if that helps.
That does help. Yeah.
Okay.
That's perfect. I was curious on that. It caught me off guard as well. So, second point of inquiry, when we look at the current wage study that's been conducted, and Commissioner Cassidy indicated that it's anticipated, hopefully we'll have an update soon. It would seem as though that wage study should provide some insight to the commissioners regarding where the various employees, including elected officials such as yourself, fall on the spectrum of reasonable or fair wages compared to similar jurisdictions. That metric, I would argue, should provide you as a BOCC with a basis to analyze what appropriate raises should be for each department. It wouldn't surprise me if that wage study came back and indicated that elected officials and or employees from departments all over the county were underpaid compared to their colleagues, right? So talking about any increase for any department, even if that department isn't one that I oversee, I could only imagine would be supported by data and statistics. Knowing what I know about the current state of the county pay, I would anticipate that would be the result. So if, it's being presented that a wage increase for the coroner, for instance, is needed or justified, wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, I would anticipate that's going to be the outcome. However, identifying what that increase should be seems like it would be a component of this wage study to give you as a BOCC a benchmark to say, if we're using the data and information we have available to us now, maybe instead of using a historic, 20-year metric of where did we come from 20 years ago and saying, hey, what is the data saying now? What is a, county coroner of a jurisdiction that sees the amount of death calls that our coroner receives? What is that county coroner supposed to be getting paid? And then using that as your basis to say, hey, we're going to look at this position and we're going to readjust it to this amount because that's where we think the going rate should be. Or maybe you don't get there in 1 year, but at least you have some sort of data to support your decision making. That would seem like the most prudent way to approach that. And that's just me providing some input from my perspective, especially considering we have the wage study that's been ordered.
And we were hoping to get it done prior to budget, but with her being out ill and things, it just didn't happen.
Sure.
But we'll utilize as much as we can, absolutely.
So that leads me to the question, I think you said put it in, what if we wanted to set that money aside for after the wage study comes and then raise the elected
Like I
officials?
said, put it in county reserve.
County reserves,
Because that rate, county reserves is under your control.
and then it could be moved after we get the wage study. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That
For
makes
county
sense.
officials, for the elected
Elected.
officials.
For the elected officials. Okay, so that I think is what the board would like to do,
Absolutely.
sounds like. Okay, so that money would be sitting there after we get the wage study, and then we could actually do something with some of the wage study. Okay. All right. Other questions from department heads or elected sheriff?
Earlier in our workshops, we talked about that administrative fee that we were paying, I think it was $222,000 administrative fee. And we kind of talked, and you told me that it was consider it more like a slush fund, like it's there, and if we need it, we could,
It's not a
use it.
slush fund, it would be
It's actual expenses,
It's actual
all
expense.
that we are paying over here.
I mean, you told me it was more of like a slush fund, like you can take it, you can take away
It
from it.
wouldn't be a slush fund. A slush fund is something you don't use. It would be also a way that you could pull back your 25% like right now, your budget is tight, so you don't have 25% or 3 months worth of pay. If something would happen, you don't have that extra funding.
Right, I'm just referring to the conversation we had during one of our workshops.
Yeah, it's not a slush fund.
But you
It's
called
a-
it a slush fund in the
Well,
workshop.
I wouldn't call it.
Well,
You did.
It's available funds that could probably be
available.
It
used
doesn't
wherever
matter.
you want to
My
move them.
question is this, so that money would have gone to the wages of elected officials? Is that what you just said?
it comes over into current expense. It's not current expense is all inclusive. There is not a fund that just goes into certain categories. No, that doesn't work that way.
That's what the way you said it, it made it sound like that money was gonna go toward, the money for the elected official increases.
That was other administrative costs that are charged outside of the county that
Oh, okay.
I'm doing.
I just want to clarify that.
Any other questions or comments or anything else that you can think of? Okay, anything from the commission?
Nope, I'm just gonna go through all of our changes and look through the new adjustments.
Well, you'll have another section.
Another session.
Another set of sheets. Because I'm throwing it all into county reserve.
Oh, right, so
That will
Kevin-
change-
So
It's gonna
will
change again.
that will change these.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else before I open it up for public comment? Public questions?
Nothing.
This is your chance to help the county, Matt.
4 o'clock tonight there is.
Oh, okay, so you'd rather do it there?
Yep.
Okay. Well, and then if there are no further questions from elected or department heads,
Commissioner Dose, several staff have asked me about COLAs. Does that fall under the wage study situation that we're waiting on?
I think the cost of living would fall under that, would it?
No, that's what you.
I don't know. A few people have asked me to ask you guys if COLA has been discussed.
Yeah, I think is it generally true we have decided not to do a COLA this year?
You're breaking your levy rates. You can't
Didn't do it forward because of the,
levy rates.
But we are doing the step and grade for the staff that you're probably talking about.
Probably. Yeah.
So there is something there.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else you can think of, Madam Clerk?
So the sign-up sheets, like I said, these L2s we won't pass out to the public at this point because they're not been voted on. You have an idea where we are going with it between this
Mhm.
on your taxes. And if there's anything else, let me know what you need. But like I said, this is where we've always used these. Now I can put in to the public, and I don't know if that would help Matt. Where I'm at on the totals off of everyone, just one sheet.
yeah.
So this is where the budget module is, the totals to go out with this.
Okay.
So that will be available tonight?
I'd give it to you now, but I got check marks.
That's okay. That's
Yeah, we
okay.
have to change a few things. too.
I'll wait to get the
And then
official.
I'm going back and changing again.
Right.
The
And
total-
that proposed does reflect the levy increase for the sheriff's department?
This here,
Whichever document.
well, the
you provide.
L2 is your proposal, but that won't be passed until Wednesday.
So,
The levy one isn't usually passed because they take in consideration of all public comments. And if they have the right to change their minds.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yes.
This would make public comment actually makes sense if we had the right to change our minds.
Yes.
That was kind of my
So-
curiosity was,
So these are just projections considered projections at this point.
And when do we get copies of our stuff? After you vote, or do we get to see it before you guys vote, so we see what you guys are voting on for our stuff?
Well, again, I'm going out and making changes, Phoebe. So
Right.
that's the reason why we don't send anything out
I get
until.
that, but do
Yeah.
we still get to see the justice numbers prior to them voting, so we at least know what they're voting on?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm just doing the math for the average person. If they had a $300,000 house, that's a $9 increase for the year. Is what that is. Okay. All right. Anything further, Commissioner?
No.
Commissioner?
No.
Okay. Last chance, Josh? Okay. All right, then we're going to adjourn until, we're going to adjourn. And then we'll be back at 4 o'clock.
That's it.
That's it. We're done.